Excel 2007, Basic Formulas. We're going to start from scratch by just doing some simple sums, some simple averages. We'll talk about what an absolute reference is and why in the world that could ever be the tool for you. We'll talk about the FX there. That is the insert function that abounds within Excel. There are tons and tons of formulas that can really help you to get the most out of your spreadsheets. And of course, Excel gives you examples, and it's not too difficult when you use this insert formula function wizard. We can also modify text with formulas. We can extract information. We can concatenate. We can clean up a whole bunch of junky text that we have maybe imported into our Excel spreadsheet. I'm also going to talk to you about the paste special so that you can have a formula but decide that you don't really want to use that formula anymore. Instead, you like the value that's displayed in that formula. I'll show you how easy it is to convert a formula from a formula right there into a value. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I have a spreadsheet here with my sales team performance. I have my sales personnel, the territory, and their totals for each quarter, how much they sold, how much they brought in to our organization. I'd like to do some totals. So I'm going to insert a new row here. To insert a row, the easiest way that I think is to select the whole row, right-click, and choose Insert. Now, this is what I want to do. I want to total this information here. I always like to put labels, East, total, so I know what I'm working with. And really, the quickest way to do this is the auto sum feature. And we've talked about this previously, but just because we're here in basic formulas, I want to get started from scratch. That's this sigma button here. If I click on that, it says, hey, is this what you're after? It sure is. So it's showing me also that the formula is equal sign sum. The range is C2 through C7. That's correct. So I can press enter on my keyboard, or I can click this check mark. Another way to auto sum would be to select the range that I want to auto sum and then click the auto sum button, and it just throws that sum in the first empty cell. Now I also have the auto sum over here on the formulas toolbar. It's right here. So I could click in this cell again, auto sum. Hey, is this the range that you want? It sure is. I can click this button again. So many different ways to do the auto sum, and of course I can auto fill that over. Notice how my pointer looks like a skinny black plus. If I just put it in the bottom right-hand corner of the cell where I want to copy, I can click and drag, and it's going to automatically update. Notice if I click in this cell, my formula is F2 through F7. If I double-click, it says, hey, this is the range that I summed. Awesome. That's the range that I summed. Okay. If you're in the middle of a formula and you click outside of it, it says, hey, sweet, okay, you want to update that formula? I'm good with that. Let's update. Oops, I didn't want to do that, so I can click this red X, which is cancel, or press escape on my keyboard. I'd like to have some totals here also, so I'll just type totals up here, press enter. I want to auto sum all this information also, so I can click and drag and select where I want my totals to go, press auto sum. It very quickly auto-summed it. And it shows me pound signs, so I can resize this column, and I can see all my totals. This, of course, is my total of all my totals. Let's double-click and see. It ended up totaling all these totals. If I wanted to change that to this, I'm going to press delete to move those items out of there. I can hit enter. It's the same value. I'm going to just make this look a little bit prettier. I'm going to press control so I can select this range. I'm going to go back to home, and I'll press B for bold. Now this stands out. You might have noticed that totals doesn't have a border at the bottom, so I can click that. Now everything's fresh and clean. I'll click save. All right, let's do some formulas the old-fashioned way without that auto sum button. I'm going to insert a row here. Notice I also have an insert command. I can choose to insert sheet rows. Just threw a row in there. Many different ways. Here are my north, I'll keep it the same consistency, I'll capitalize it all, north totals. Now I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. Always, always, always with formulas, start with an equal sign. Equal, what am I summing? I'm going to sum Mary Kennedy. What do I use to add? Well, a plus. Plus Joseph, plus Frank plus Hyung plus Jason plus Gino. Whoops, I must have hit a minus. Whoops. I'm going to change that to a plus. That looks good. I'll press enter, or I could click that check mark. All right. There's my formula here on the formula bar. Of course, I could double click again to see that formula. Or on your keyboard, you can press F2 to edit a cell. Doesn't have to be a formula. Here it's a formula, so I could edit my formula. I'll press escape. All right, I can now copy this over. I could copy it over through all of them, and notice it does a relative reference. It says, okay, I'm in column D. Now I'm going to sum column D, column E, column F. All right. Same thing here. I could copy down my auto sum. If I wanted to, do the autofill. I want to show you one more thing. When we clicked on these, remember our formula was equal sign sum, parenthesis, the range, closing parenthesis. So on my own, I could type in equal sign. I'm going to move my cursor out of the way. SUM, and it says, hey, look at all these formulas that I have that starts with a sum. Which one do you want? Well, I'm going to stick with sum. If I press the open paren, it says, all right, you've landed on sum. What do you want to do? I'm right here. I'm at number 1. That's telling me, well, you've got to add the first number of the range. I'm going to add these quarterly items together, so that would be C9. It is not case sensitive, by the way. C9. Range is indicated by a colon, F9. Need a closing paren to finish that off. That's the syntax. When I press enter, it's given me that value. Now, what if I try it again? Equal sign sum, open paren. Now this time I want C10, colon F10. I'm supposed to put a closing paren, but if I hit enter, it will figure that out for me. It said, hey, I know you're working on a formula. I know the syntax. This is relatively new to Excel. It's not new in 2007, but you used to get some errors thrown at you if you didn't have the syntax exactly right. That looks good. I'll press enter. Now you might have known earlier I had this little green triangle in the upper left-hand corner of this cell G8. When I click on it, it says, yep, you've got an error. When I click on this, it tells you, hey, this is your problem, inconsistent formula. What do you want to do? Do you want to copy the formula from above? Do you want help? Do you want to ignore this? Or do you want to just edit this in the formula bar? This is the formula bar. Or how about some of these error checking options? I'll tell you what. I don't want to copy the formula from above. I did a new formula because I just started from scratch. It really is the same formula. I just didn't copy it, so Excel thought, whoa, something's wrong here. I need to tell you. I'm going to ignore this error. Now that green triangle is gone. All right, so I can just copy this information down, and I can bold this information again. Select a range, press Control, select a range, and I can click B or Control B on your keyboard, bolds items. I always like to do keyboard commands because you do a lot of typing in Excel. Might as well just take advantage of having your hands on the keyboard. Control S for save. You can do some other features with that automated auto sum feature. For example, average or count numbers. So let's go ahead and grab the averages. I'll click this down arrow. I'll choose average, and it's saying, hey, are these what you want to average? Not exactly. I don't want to average my totals in there. C2 through F2. Enter. All right, there are my averages. You can copy these down. I can press copy. You can click here, and I can choose paste. It's going to paste these formulas down. Notice how it's always updating. Okay, you're in row 9. I'm going to update my formula to indicate row 9. These are still flashing because I had copied it to my clipboard. If I press escape on my keyboard, it removes those items. So I'm going to be consistent and put that underline there. So on average, my employee here, Nancy, she averaged at $19,775 in sales over all her quarters. What I'd like to see now is, of all my East Regional salespeople, what percentage of sales did Nancy have versus Ann versus Martin and so on down the line? So I'm going to find out the percent of sales. Resize that a little bit. And just because this is in the way, I'm going to hide it. I can select it, right-click, choose Hide. Now it's out of our viewing area. So what's the formula for a percent? Well, I want to divide her totals, Nancy's totals, by the overall totals for all these quarters. What do we start every formula with? Always an equal sign. I'm going to divide her totals. So that we have the backslash is the symbol for division. The star is the symbol for multiplication, by the way, and of course you have the plus and the minus. Divided by the East totals, that's my formula. I'll press enter. So she's about 17%. I'm going to click the percent button up here on the home ribbon to format it as a percent. 17%. Well, I'd also like to see what ands are. And by the way, if you want to freeze pane so that you don't have to keep scrolling back and forth, you simply select the cell underneath and to the right of the items that you want to freeze, and then you find the freeze command, which is on the view ribbon, freeze panes, freeze top row, freeze column. If I choose freeze panes, it's just going to freeze above and next to what I selected. So now I can always see Nancy there on the left, and I've frozen that row too, so I can always see these labels as well. It makes it a lot easier to understand this spreadsheet. All right, so what do we have? We have Nancy's totals divided by all the totals. Let's see what happens when I autofill this down, when I copy it down. All right, 320%. Does that seem possible? Could Anne's numbers have been 320%? Let's see what that formula is. It's actually dividing Anne's totals now by Mary's totals. That is not what we want. Usually in Excel, this relative reference is pretty good. When I copy a formula from one place to the other, that's fine because I really do want it to copy relatively. Not in this situation. In this situation, I always want the denominator to be the totals for our East sale. So how do I fix this? I'm going to cancel this. In fact, I'm going to select these items and press delete. I need an absolute reference. No matter what, I want G8 to be the denominator. So I'll select that and I'll press F4 on my keyboard. Notice now I have dollar signs around my denominator. $G, $8. This is an absolute reference because it's saying no matter what, stick with column G and row 8 or cell G8. You could adjust this. Maybe you wanted just to stick with row 8, but you did want it to be able to move from column to column. You could just put a dollar sign next to 8 and have none next to the G. But this is what we want. That looks good. I'll press enter. Now let's copy that down and see what happens. 32%. That looks a little bit better. So this is G3 divided by G8. This is G4 divided by G8. All right, G5 divided by G8, and so on. Oops, I'll hit escape here. And so on down the line. We now have an absolute reference, which makes sure we're always going to have the right data. This is helping us to keep our data intact. Data integrity is what we're after. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other formulas that we can work with. I'm just going to click over here. And we'll go take a look at the formula wizard. We can either click this button right here, it's called the insert function, or we can go to the formulas ribbon, take a look at the breakout of the categories for our functions, or we can simply click on the insert function button. This launches a dialog box for us where we could do a search. Well, what are we after here? Maybe I want to concatenate some items. When I hit enter, it says, okay, well, we got a couple different things. We recommend for you the concatenate function. And it tells you, okay, you can join several text strings into one text string. Here's the syntax. You could even go get more help regarding that. Or date returns the number that represents the date in Microsoft Excel's date time code. All right. Or if I didn't like that, I could always take a look at this down arrow and see my most recently used functions. I could go right to lookup and reference functions. We've got the HLOOKUP function here, the VLOOKUP, Match returns the relative position of any item in an array that matches a specified value in a specified order. That's pretty cool. I could go to text. I could clean up any non-printable characters from a cell that has text in it. Of course, I can go to all. Here they're simply in alphabetical order. And I can do the inverse hyperbolic cosine of a number. Yes, there is mathematical, engineering, financial, database, text, all sorts of different functions that exist in here. Notice as I scroll down, there are tons of these functions. Each one I click on is going to give you a definition of what it does in the syntax you can use. Let's just locate a simple one. I'm going to press I on my keyboard, and from here I can find information, if I get the alphabet correctly. Info returns information about the current operating environment. Okay? Type text specifying the type of information you want returned. Okay, so here I need to say, well, what kind of information am I after? Well, I'm after the release. When I choose OK, it's going to say 12.0. That's the release of Excel that I'm running. It's now called 2007. It's called the release. I could also put OS version in here. Look at that. I'm going to resize this a little bit. You can see that I'm running a Windows 32-bit operating system. Hey, this is just a simple formula, but what I wanted to show you is by using this insert function, it opens up a dialog box. You can find all the different formulas. Some are pretty simple. Some take some time to really understand what variables go inside the formula, but they all have the same syntax, and you can always go to help and it will describe how you're going to make this item work. A lot of the formulas that we have here have to do with text, so I'm going to open up another file that's going to enable us to really work with the text. So our goal here is twofold. We're going to open up a file that just has messy text in it. I said our goal is twofold. A, because you probably can use Excel. You can think of ways in your world to bring in text and modify it quickly and easily. You probably type in here a lot. You might import files from other locations and export them out using Excel as the middle ground. So just by using these formulas, it's a quick, easy way to clean up text. If you have extra spacing, if they're broken apart, if you need to extract just certain pieces of text out of a bigger bunch of text, you can use Excel for that. That's one part of my goal. The second part is that it's going to let you see using these formulas over and over and over again and really how the process works. So the idea is we've got all this ugly text in here that we need to fix up by using some of the text formulas. We imported text, and look at that. It is just a flat-out mess. Some of it's uppercase, some of it's lowercase. So let's fix that. I'll go to my text function area, and what I want to do is make it all lowercase. This will convert all letters to lowercase, or I can make it proper case, which capitalizes the first letter of the sentence. There's an uppercase in there as well. I'll just choose lowercase. It says, great, okay, well, what text? I'll go out here, I'll click in cell A1. Notice it's building my formula, equal lower. Within parentheses is the text I want to make lowercase. I'll expand this box again. It says, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Sounds great to me. I'll choose OK. So now I've got my messy, my base. I've got my new text, which is a formula. So theoretically, you could go through and you could modify all the text, make it look good, and then you could delete this column or delete the areas where the messy text is. That could be a problem, though, couldn't it? Because what happens if you've got a formula based on column A1 and it disappears? That would mess everything up. So the next step is to paste this special as a value instead of a formula. And picture that you might have many, many more pieces of text. Paste special is how you can do this. So I'll right-click. I will choose copy. I'm just going to choose this location to paste it. When I right-click again, I've got paste special and paste as an option. Pasting would just paste the formula, or, well, by default, I can make some selections there. But for now, let's choose paste special. What is it that I want to paste? All, that would be formatting, formulas, everything. I just want to paste the value of what's displayed here. When I choose OK, it shows the same thing. And notice, it's not a formula. It's that actual text. This is a formula. This is text. So now I've cleaned up the text and I've broken it away from any formula that it's based off of. Hopefully you can see reasons that you can just use paste special in your daily work as well. Now, we've got another problem, space problems. We imported this and look at that. It is super messy. We've got all these crazy spaces. So now, let's go ahead and grab the next formula. Again, I know it's in the text area, so I don't have to click my insert function dialog box. I can scroll down. This is the trim formula. The trim formula removes all spaces except for single spaces, so it's not ruining it. It's only cleaning it up. Cell A1, that looks good. Shows me how it's going to look. Okay, look at that. Looks a lot better. Let's go ahead and do that paste special again. I can do a copy, right-click, and do a paste. And when this little button pops up, I want to be sure to choose values only. So again, I've broken it away from its formula. Once it's cleaned up, I can delete all the messy parts. Broken text. This is one cell. This is another cell. Let's go ahead and use that concatenate formula. I'll click in this cell, go back to text, concatenate. Concatenate means you're joining items together, text strings, whatever it is that you want to join together. What am I concatenating? Well, instead of going out there and clicking like I've been doing, I can simply type A1, B1, and then click OK. That looks good, right? Now this is one cell instead of two cells. How am I sure? Well, I can move it. This is the same as a cut and paste. If I just click and drag, notice how my pointer looked like double-sided arrows? So it's all sticking together. It is one entire concatenated group of text. Now how about this? Look at this. Messy, messy, messy. I don't want all this junk in there. All I want is east. All I want out of this is that word east. So I can use a formula called left to do this. Left, because it's at the left side, returns the specified number of characters from the start of a text string left. There is also right, which I could count from right to left to figure out how many, or to extract specific characters. There's also mid. So I would have to know the beginning and the ending position, and that would grab those characters out. I mentioned left. Left, text, cell A1, number of characters. I want east. I happen to know that there are 4 characters in east. Look, it's showing me that. If I did 10, it would be east region. I'll just stick with 4. Okay, now it's east. Fantastic, right? And if I had this in a number of different places, maybe this said west. West has 4 in it as well, and I copied this down. It's going to find it for me. East. What if I change this to north? It's only going to take the first 4 north, so I could, of course, amend that, put a 5 in there. Now it's grabbing the first 5 characters. What if I had tons and tons and tons of data in here? I wanted to see if these were the same, if they had the exact same values or characters in it, and I didn't want to have to do much reading. That's where my exact formula comes in. Exact. Checks whether 2 text strings are exactly the same and returns either a true or false, and it is case sensitive. So text 1 will be cell A1, text 2 will be cell A2. It's showing me already it's going to be false. I choose OK. So it's either going to show true or false, but this is something you can use when you have a large number of text strings. You can't read through them all, and it is of the utmost importance that they are exactly the same. So let's put 2 of these items together. The extracting that we just did and the concatenate. You know how you get social security numbers or credit card numbers? input to you, but you don't want to display that information, well, we want to extract the last 4 digits of a Social Security number, but we don't want it just to say 1, 2, 3, 4. We also want to concatenate that with just X's. So when people look at it, they know, oh, I got the syntax. I'm just looking at the last 4 of my SOCH. I'm going to just type this from scratch because we already know how to use the function wizard. It's concatenate, concatenate. This is indicating that I spelled it correctly. What do I want to concatenate? Well, text. What text? Just XXX, XX, dash, right? That's the basic symbols. Closing quote, because that's a text string, comma, and I want to do the right function now because I want the right 4 digits, right? This is a function. Cell A2 is where my text is, and then the number of characters I want to count from right to left. That's 4 characters from right to left. I need a closing paren to close off this function, right? And I need a closing paren to close off the overall concatenate function. All right? So equal sign because it's a formula. Concatenate. Concatenate's a function, so everything that I'm concatenating has to go in the outside parentheses. I'm concatenating the text string of X's, so that's why they're in quotes. Simply put a comma after that because that is the syntax. Now I have a different function. I'm extracting the rightmost text from cell A2, just the 4 characters going from right to left. I'll choose enter, and look at that. It worked. Well, there you have it. Your formulas are all up here on the ribbon. You can access them with this function. You can go to the category, or you can even just flat out type them into that cell. You can always copy your formulas to other locations, or you can just paste them special as a value. In this nugget, we really started from scratch, being able to use the auto sum and just typing in the equal sign and using the appropriate operators to come up with the right formula. Of course, we took advantage of the function wizard, the insert function dialog box that really can hold our hand and help us to come up with these outstanding formulas. Not only did we just take a tour of those, but we even went in there and modified strings of text to come up with what we wanted. We also talked about how you can use the paste special function to be able to just paste a value. Instead of having that formula in your spreadsheet, you can then just paste that value off of that formula and reuse that text over and over and over again. Well, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.